Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting Tuesday evening Eventide patrons only stream. How is everyone doing here this fine Tuesday evening? Good? I hope so. It's been kind of a wild week for me. Wild couple of weeks, truth be told, ever since I kind of got back from the winter break. My day-to-day life has been embroiled in the challenges and controversies of the day. And this obviously bleeds into Eventide in some interesting ways. I figured we should gather up tonight, just kind of talk about how the past week has gone and where I see this project going into the future. Now, obviously, for those of you who watched last week's stream, I had to talk to you all about what I could talk to you about. Obviously, you know, there was some stuff going on behind the scenes about what Paizo's response might be, and I couldn't talk to you about that. So I had to talk to you about it as if I didn't know about it. The same is still true, right? I'm spend a great deal of time compartmentalizing what I know from work and making decisions based off what I can know for Eventide, because I have to be separate, right? You know, that's the only way I keep this above board. I don't get to use insider knowledge. Now, that said, cards are on the table, right? You know, the Wizards has talked about a new version of the OGL. In the past week, they confirmed some of the rumors about a proposed draft of 1.1, and at the same time, they walked back some of those rumors, saying that they weren't going to demand royalty payments, and that you would get to continue to own your content. So I suppose the question then comes down to, what does that mean for Eventide? Would Eventide be like, well, as long as I don't have to pay them royalties, and as long as I get to keep my content, does that mean I would sign on with 1.2? No. Minotaur Games will be joining forces with the Orc Horde as soon as it is able to do so. I have already registered Minotaur Games in with the list of companies interested in learning more about Orc. This is me just keeping everything above board. And also so that Minotaur Games, as the tiny press it is, can have its voice in that process. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, I do think, you know, honestly, folks, I have done nothing on Eventide for a week and a half. I just haven't had the energy or the ability to do so. All of my efforts are being dragged in other directions. That's going to continue at least for a little bit. Not too much longer, I don't think, because a lot of it isn't stuff that I really have to worry about. But, you know, the stress of the day job and whatnot has made it very hard for me to make much progress in the evenings, just putting cards on the table. For example, both of the playtest sessions that were supposed to happen in the past week got canceled. Mainly because half my players canceled, because half my players had other commitments due to this whole debacle. I expect that to change. As a matter of fact, I expect the playtesting to resume next week. So I do believe that, you know, my playtesting of Part 2 of Wolfram's Fate will pick back up next Thursday and then the following month. So I don't think all is lost. This is a small setback, but I don't think it's going to impact us over much. Now, let's step back and talk about this year's plan, how it interacts with what we know, and where we go from here. So, at the very beginning of this year, the very first Tuesday of this year, right before the news started breaking, I did have a stream, it's still up on YouTube, that talked about, you know, what my plans were for the year. Release Wolfram's Fate, all 4 parts of it. Release the Player's Guide, and release the GM's Guide. That was my goal for the year. That's what I wanted to accomplish. I don't think anything necessarily changes. I think there might be some timing issues, and it wouldn't surprise me if the GM's Guide now becomes a very big challenge to happen this year. But I do think the adventures and the Player's Guide are still possible. I think I'm going to see a bit of a delay. Now, obviously, I thought, you know, hey, you know, Part 1 of Wolfen's Fate could quite conceivably still be released under OGL V10A. Assuming that remains in legal good standing up through the point in time where I could finish up the PDF. Like, I was like, well, I could rush to finish it up right now. But there's part of me in the back of my head that says, well, maybe what I should do is just hold it and make sure it's compatible with the Orc license. Now, I don't know what the terms of the Orc license are. I'm not too worried about the terms of the license. It's more about the SRD and the material that comes with it, right? So, there is kind of that. And ultimately, it's Pathfinder, which I already know. So, I guess I'm not too worried. But there is kind of now this question of just like, well, I'm kind of in limbo, at least on that front. But frankly, Part 1 of Wolfen's Fate was never going to release to the public in a month anyway. So there is part of me that thinks, I'm standing on the finish line of Part 1 of Wolfen's Fate. I literally just need to finish laying out the text. That's it. It's edited. Copy fit on a PDF is not a challenging thing. For those not in the industry, copy fit means making the words and the text fit pleasingly on pages. It doesn't seem like it'd be that hard, but you'd be surprised sometimes, especially with stat blocks and headers, because they'll want to break in weird ways and make the text look dumb, and then you have to smush text here or move art there and kind of shift and adjust things to get the text to sit just right on the pages so that it looks like a pleasing document. And in some cases, especially when dealing with a print book, copy fit usually means fitting the copy in the space that you have. So sometimes that'll mean trimming or adding to text to make it fit. I don't really have to do that with a PDF. If PDF is one more page longer, I don't know. If the text doesn't go all the way to the bottom of one page, okay, right? So copy fit on a PDF is a lot easier than copy fit in a print book. So I'm this close to having Part 1 of Wolfen's Fate just done. Just period, done, finished, ready to go. Question is, do I bother? And honestly, I want to get, a finished document, a finished part of the adventure out to all of you. I think, folks have waited long enough to see a finished piece of this. So there's part of me that thinks maybe I should just do that. And it'll be, as far as a PDF is, a collector's item for those who are here at the early part of the campaign, because all the rest of the pieces, and in fact, Part 1 will have to be updated to be compatible with Orc. And whatever requirements come with that. I don't know right now, even within Paizo, frankly, folks, I'm not in the room where they're discussing the legalese and license. It's not my job. I make games. I don't make game licenses. So, yeah. So, question, OGL 10A published before WotC changes, then update on drive-through when Orc does come out. Yeah, isn't it just... The question is, could I release it under 10A and then just swap to the Orc license? Maybe, right? I think so, right? I until I see the license and what terms come with it, right? It might have certain requirements. I don't know. And frankly, I don't even want to conjecture because folks might take it as me signaling about something that I know. I don't know. I really don't. So I don't want to say that it's just going to be as easy as swapping out a page, because it might not be. But it also might be, right? So that's kind of where I live, is that I don't know. And I'm hoping there'll be some clarity soon, but I think the whole rest of the industry agrees with me. Now, whether or not, because this references my own world and it's all my own text, I mean, there is a world in which I release it with just no license, right? I mean, because you can't copyright rules. That's something that a lot of folks don't fully understand, but you can't copyright rules or rules text. It's not like prose or media or photos or movies, right? Rules text, descriptive text of a process or a machination, that's not something that can be copyrighted. You can reference that freely and it doesn't matter. So yeah. I mean, that is, an important thing to understand, is that I'm not a lawyer. And frankly, that is why these OGLs, the OGL and the Orc license are so important to a small imprint like me, because I can't afford a lawyer. So giving me a easy to use contract lowers the barrier to entry. There's been a lot of folks talking lately about how, well, we never needed this. You could just use, why don't you just use Creative Commons and all this other stuff? And they're not technically wrong, but a lot of those things either require a deep understanding of the ins and outs of the Creative Commons, which is a not a simple license, that actually requires some complex kind of delineations to make work the right way, and isn't really designed for game tech. More designed for software and things like that where you just give access to the whole. So there's that. And then, folks being like, well, under copyright law, you never really needed an OGL anyway. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of true, except for the fact that I don't want to risk being sued by doing the wrong things. And this at least gave me a good framework to understand where I was doing the right things versus where I was doing the wrong. Right. It was just more of a known framework as opposed to just relying on, frankly, if you dig deep enough, relying on a Supreme Court decision from 1880 and the Copyright Act passed in the 60s. It's like, I'm just a game maker and I don't want to really know any of that, even though now I do because of all of this. So that's kind of where we're at. And as a result, I kind of got to wait for the Orc license. Now, again, I don't know when Wizards is going to speak again. I don't know when they're going to put out some new revised license that has different terms. I suspect going to be even more different than what we've seen right now. I don't know, though. And I don't know what terms are going to be in it. And frankly, Minotaur Games doesn't really have to care. Because I don't need to work with WotC. I don't need to work with their OGL, whatever it is. Because I can go join the Orc Horde, right? And that's probably the right call for me. I mean, obviously, my games being compatible with Pathfinder and Orc being for Pathfinder means that I have to go Orc. So there really isn't any debate here. Right. Not that there would be, because frankly, I'm not interested in whatever license they come up with. I can't imagine it will still contain poison pills, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. It's conjecture at this point, right? I don't think any of us have. Again, not a lawyer. So that's kind of what's going on that front. I think, for all of you who were here during the launch of Hopefinder, this is great news for Hopefinder, because Hopefinder, I think is in a great spot. I'm starting to investigate how to do a print run of it so that folks can get print copies. And Alara and Capricola, I know I still owe you one. So yeah, it's kind of weird times right now. A lot of my free time right now is just being spent in meetings and chats and lots of social media. If you haven't noticed, I've been all over social media, kind of helping new players, because we've gotten a lot. And honestly, I haven't been doing a lot to promote this campaign. And honestly, folks, if you're wondering why, it's because I've been uncertain about what was going to happen, right? As of last week, I didn't know what was going to happen, right? I mean, honestly, folks, last Tuesday, I wasn't being deceptive. I didn't know yet, right? I didn't quite understand yet what was all going to happen and what speed it was going to happen. And honestly, it all happened a lot faster than I think any of us thought. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm still at. That doesn't mean I'm not working on it. I'm still picking at edges and doing what I can when time allows. But there hasn't been a lot of development work in the past week, just because the entire game industry has been kind of a crucible of news. So yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, there's a note in the comments here that I can, still publish under 108. That's absolutely true, right? I mean, and that's the thing, right? Once it's published under 108, it's safe, right? In that framework. But because it's part of a larger campaign, I will probably want to update that at some point in time to go with the license that the rest of it is using, so that it's all under the same license. So yeah, I don't know that I have to put things on hold necessarily. I think what I can do is I can certainly release things under 10A as long as 10A is legally viable. And currently it is, and honestly, I mean, again, I'm not a lawyer, but the language in 10A doesn't seem like something you can revoke. I think going after it on the authorized term is really thin ice. But I'm not going to hire a lawyer to find out. So for me, it's easiest to just kind of play safe harbors. If I go forward and push layout on part 1 of Wolfram's Fate, I will be doing so full well with the understanding that I may have to go in and do surgery later. That's not the end of the world, right? I mean, honestly, I can still make that happen and kind of hit my original goal, which was to have part 1 in all of your hands by the end of the month. That's not impossible. Laying out this thing is not going to take forever. I already have all the art isolated, and I have all the pieces ready. I just need to sit down and do them. So, there's part of me that thinks that while, WotC is still figuring it out, and everything is still kind of as it was, I can at least release to all of you. I wouldn't necessarily put it up for sale until I know. And besides, this all gets back to the original plan for Wolfram's Fate, which is releasing part 1 and then making people wait, 2.5 months, 3 months for part 2 isn't great. So I always wanted to hold part 1 for a public release anyway. So, honestly, I'm starting to think, and this is you all seeing me think through this live, that maybe the best answer is to release Wolfram's Fate to all of you under 10A, and then hold for the final release to be compatible with the Orc license. There's a decent chance that won't mean any change to it at all other than swapping out. In which case, great, right? In that case, I just roll it forward and it no one will ever know. But I can't say that for any certainty until I see it, right? It might have a clause in it that says no Eventides, right? I think it will. But I can't know. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's the route to go, right? And frankly, who knows, what the future may hold, right? This may open up some interesting opportunities for Eventide to have a nice clean start, right? And be part of kind of one thing that I'm kind of trying to be cognizant of is that there will be a point in time where there is a wave of Orc products. Wouldn't it be great to be on the ground floor on that? And I think it would. I really think it would. So maybe that's what I aim for. To be part of the first slate of Orc products. I think that's pretty savvy. And there might be something there. So, yeah, business-wise, that seems... I hadn't really thought about it, right? It's like I'm in kind of a unique position in that I have a product that's been going through its paces and is coming together nicely and is, frankly, well-timed for at least parts of it to come out day and date. So maybe that's what I aim for, is day and date. Day and date live. Yeah. Vanguard. I'll sign up to be in the Vanguard. The Vanguard are always the expendable troops. I'm certainly the expendable ones. We'll let Paizo and Green Ronin and Kobold Press. They'll be the cav in the back, ready to charge things down. I'm the Vanguard. I'm the one who runs up front and gets murdered, but that's fine. Glory goes to those in the front. So I think that's kind of fun. You know, that is definitely kind of fun. Yeah. So I think that's where we're at. Folks, there's a lot of, frankly, folks, there's a lot of folks in here tonight that we don't necessarily always see in these videos. And I want to welcome everybody and thank you all for stopping by. I'm happy to kind of hang out and answer questions about Eventide or talk about the process and where things are at. Kind of open to just kind of an open chat here for at least a little bit. Because honestly, there isn't a lot to discuss other than things are shifting and moving, and I'm trying to adapt this project to them as best I can. So, I don't know if anybody noticed, but on Twitter last night, I just started asking around about where folks did their booklet printing. Because, as it turns out, you know, this is a booklet, right? This is booklet printing. So, if I can find a good booklet printer, I'm off to the races on this. This is done. I also reached out to the editor that I got for part 1 of Eventide to see if they might be interested in editing Hopefinder. And they were. So, and they are. So, looks like I might be able to get a good solid edit pass on it as well, which will up the quality. Not that I think it's bad right now, but there's one thing I've learned in this business. I'm a decent designer. I'm a good writer. An editor always makes it better. always. So, that's what I'm thinking about for that. So I might engage with that ASAP. And possibly, I know this is about Eventide, not Hopefinder, but all of you got it. So, you know, you're in the know at least. But with the Last of Us premiering on HBO, I think now's the perfect time to do this as a crowdfunder. So I may run to the presses and make a Hopefinder crowdfunder here as quickly as my little legs allow me. But we'll see. We'll see what I have time for. I need to arrange who's printing it and how much that's going to cost before I can even remotely try and figure out how to do a crowdfunder for it. I haven't done one in years. That is a big. Yeah. So I don't know if folks have questions about anything. I'm happy to kind of hang out and just chat here for a bit. Honestly, most of my thought has been on other topics the past week or so, frankly, and dealing with social media. I've never kind of dealt with tweets that have gone truly viral before. I've had some tweets that go big and stuff like that, but it is a whole different level of social media engagement where, you know, you're getting 10 to 15 notifications per minute, and your phone just kind of goes bling, 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 bling. That's just what it does. My phone just blew up on me for like 3 days. So the question is, there's a question of, with an editor taking a pass on Hopefinder, how far away is part 2 being ready for edit? So part 2 is still at like 95% writing. There's like literally 3 encounters I need to still write. And those are being written this weekend because the groups might hit them next week. So I'm getting so close to the end with my playtesting that I have to finish up. And I have them in notes. It's not like they're non-existent. They're just not finished. So I need to finish that up. And yeah, that right now that becomes the open question: is do I have the editor tackle part 2 of Wolfram's Fate, or do I have them tackle Hopefinder? I'm tempted to have them tackle Hopefinder because I just think Hopefinder is going to be ready to go right now, whereas Wolfram's Fate part 2 is probably going to need another couple of weeks, a week or so for me to finish the text, and then like probably about 2 weeks for me to do a courtesy pass. This is something in game design speak, which is just like the writer goes back through their work to make sure it's not bad. You do a pass on your own work, right? So that's something I need to kind of figure out. So Tiger Eyes would love to see how I start putting things together in Adobe. I think you know, maybe that might make for an interesting Tuesday stream, is showing how I do layout in InDesign. I'm not sure if that's something folks would be excited about or put to sleep by, and frankly, I'm no expert. So I know how to make the things I'm trying to make, but understand that there are times where, because I'm self-taught on InDesign, I didn't take courses on this. I taught myself how to lay out documents. There are times where I have to stop and be like, wait, how the hell do I do that? And then I have to go look it up on the internet or go watch a video. Can't tell you how many times I've been like, how do I get my lines to snap to a grid? How do I set that grid? And then how do I adjust the character styles so that they play nicely with the new line grid? I know that doesn't make sense to most of you. And it's not exactly fun, but it is interesting. Well, and it all comes down to the fact that when you're doing 2-column text, you have to, if you want lines in the neighboring columns to line up with one another, you have to have the line snap to grid. And if you have the line snap to grid, but your character styling is too big for the line, that means that character style will automatically take up 2 lines. So you have to kind of plan your headers and your section breaks to either fit within a line or to fully take up 2 lines or have a different weight and hierarchy within that system so that when you flow it, it all comes in nicely. And then you start adding texts and text boxes which break all those rules, and you have to figure out how those work. So, and that's just one small aspect of the kind of boring pedantry that is laying things out in InDesign. Laura, yeah, a tweet by Pat Oswald, I'm going to wager that's going to go big. Yeah, no, I had a tweet that ended up with, I had 2 tweets over the past week that had over 250,000 impressions and 5,000 likes. And suffice to say, my Twitter feed blew up on. So I'm going to need to find a way to manage it. It's going to happen now and again. I don't know whether it is, but it happened recently. So, so one of the things that is kind of interesting, you know, because all of you are also here to kind of learn a bit about how game design works. There's an aspect of this that speaks to styling. You wouldn't think that that's a part of game design, but it kind of is, right? In that, in Word, it starts in Word. This gets carried over into InDesign. You create character styles for hierarchies and weights and things like that, and we use different ones for character stat blocks and stuff because we want those to format differently. And like, there's an information design aspect of how you do styles, right? How you have like return indents and stuff like that so that they give line hierarchy, and how you kind of change header sizes and weights and how things are offset. Like, there is kind of this whole aspect of the game's design that is really kind of graphical in nature, which has to do with, frankly, this gets pretty deep in the reads into what's called the UX design. That's the user experience. And what you're trying to do is create something that the product by its very nature has a better usability based on its design. And I'm not talking about its game design, I'm talking about its graphic design and its art design, the lettering design. And some of that stuff is pretty deep in the reads. And I guarantee you've opened up game books by small indie presses and just felt like you were banging your head against a wall because the text was giant blocks and it wasn't cleanly delineated and there wasn't good header hierarchies and things like that. You didn't realize it, but that's what was causing it. It's that lack of kind of information design that is really important to a project, and frankly for something like an adventure is pretty critical, right? You know, if hell, here, let me I got a little bit of time, we're talking about this. Let me go to open up my folder here. Not that. Products. So what I'm going to do here is Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up a window here. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and I'm going to cover up my face, or at least part of my face here. I'm going to put it over here. That way I can be over here kind of looking at my document. So this is the Word document for Wolfram's Fate. And, you know, the fonts in here are some of the fonts I use in the final version of the document. But you'll see, even at this point, right, there's some header hierarchies, right? You know, H2s, H3s, H1s. Stuff like that. That's all basic. But where it really starts to come together... I'm sorry, I didn't set this up. Normally I do a more smooth thing. Is when you get down here into the stat blocks. Now, these have very careful, curated information design to make it easy to navigate the stat block. Right? This is something you see in Paizo products, and guess what? I learned it from watching them. So what you'll see in here are some lines of text look kind of like all the others, but they're a different color. What actually happens is that's actually an entirely different style. In fact, if I open up my style panel and I go here, this is stat body, whereas this text right here is called stat body divider. And the entire point of that is that that means that beneath that piece of text, there's going to be a line dividing the stat block. Right, and then you've got your traits that are in a different style, right? They're in stat traits versus stat H1. You know, that's kind of how all this stuff works versus, you know, frankly, just body text and body indent text and sidebar text, right? So most of this stuff, like, it's not super complicated things. But you have to know how to navigate, and you have to know how to use it because it makes your life so much easier, right? While you're writing it, changing a style and shifting things around isn't that hard. It's not that complicated. You just kind of do it on the fly. But then when it comes to layout, when I pop this stuff over into InDesign to do the final layout, it's done. That's it. I don't have to style it. I don't have to do anything. It's ready. And that's really valuable. I think that does allow you to save a lot of time and a lot of effort, right? The last thing you want to do is write it all in Times New Roman, no bolding, no italics, no nothing, right? While you're typing it, just know your styles, type it in the styles, and then when you're ready to go, your editor can correct it for styles. That's part of the document, part of the treatise of what you've asked them to do, and then, frankly, you're kind of done. You just import it to InDesign, and it all pops in the way it's supposed to. And the great part is, if you screwed anything up, it'll usually be pretty obvious in InDesign because it'll look weird. You'll see it at a point where it's like, wait a minute, what's going on with that piece of text? That is not the right font for this. This is... Because you'll see the other pieces next to it, and it'll just look strange. So, yeah, it's doing that sort of stuff. That's where Wolfram's Fate is right now, right? I have all of my comments back from the editor, and that was not the edited copy. The edited copy is in that folder, but all I'm basically doing is laying it out now. So that's not really that complicated in the grand scheme of things. The layout for something like this in particular is actually pretty, dare I say, simple or even easy. It's just finding the time to do it. So, you know, I do think that is something I need to prioritize. Is getting part 1 finished because I'm right there, right? I've got a handful of pieces of color art. I got a bunch of really great black and white spot pieces. I've got the cover, which is, you know, done. Is that even in here? Map. Put it in here. Only. No, I don't think I did. I don't think I did. Got those folks. Those folks. No. All right. It's not currently loaded. But I have the cover. It's all done, right? You know, all the layout on that sort of stuff. So all I need to do is fill the text. So maybe I'll just do that. I think that's the way forward, folks. I think that's our path. Our path is to Step 1, lay out part 1 of Wolfram's Fate. At the same time, wrap up writing on part 2. While that's happening, I want to get my editor working on Hopefinder. I don't think it's going to take them too terrifically long. It is a big kind of project, but I don't think it's going to cause any problems to the Wolfram's Fate project. It might take them a month and a half or something, but I don't think that is too much of a challenge for what the long-term goal is here. And the long-term goal is get all of you part 1 of Wolfram's Fate while still allowed under 1.0a. That's probably going to be the only part that's allowed under 1.0a. Because I don't think I could have part 2 ready, assuming that they are going to do something, bonkers and try and deauthorize here in the next few weeks. I don't know, but the moment they start saying that they're deauthorizing it, me without a lawyer is going to stop using it. At least I'm going to stop publishing things under it. There's nothing they can do about things that are already out. That ship has sailed. So I think I'll put together part 1 of Wolfram's Fate under 1.0a, and then we'll be sprinting hard to make sure all of the parts are releasable to the public under the Orc license as soon as we can. So I think that works. That's a good plan. I feel good about that plan. I'm excited about that. I'm happy to be a part of that plan. All right, folks. That's what I got here today. I'm not sure, we're still a little early, so if folks have any other questions, I'm happy to kind of field some of them, but I do think that is now the new game plan. I do think I'm going to go forward with, working on getting the player's guide ready for later this year, and the GM's guide will follow up as soon as possible. So really it just comes down to writing the rest of Wolfram's Fate, which shouldn't be too hard because I've got a pretty good script now outlined for part 3. And part 4 is, frankly, the easiest part. So, yeah. I like this plan. I'm happy to be a part of it. All right. Well, I think that's about all I have here today, folks. I don't know that I have really anything too much more to go over. So why don't we all get in a good stretch? Get ready, settle in. I have another stream coming up here in just about 20 minutes. So why don't we all take a little bit of a break? Our outlines for 3 and 4 done. The outline for 3 is done. The outline is done in that it's an outline. It's pretty sketchy still, but it is still put together. Is it still tweaking? Yes. I mean, outlines, frankly, the way I write outlines, they're always tweak until they're written, right? I'll get halfway through an outline and rewrite half the outline, right? But that's normal. That's part of my process. So the outline's where it is. And the part 4 outline is not really started yet, other than kind of bullet, which is mostly talking about what part 4 needs to accomplish. And as I kind of develop part 3, part 4 will take more shape because I'll realize what things I've left open for myself and what advantages I have still to fold into part 4. When writing something this big, because this is not a small thing, and the one thing I've come to realize is that the way I'm writing this, it is a very, very long adventure for what is, frankly, not as much long adventure in terms of its overall content, because there's so much that isn't just fights, right? Most adventurers are deeply concerned about space, and I don't care about that for this. This adventure will be the length it needs to be, and if that means it's a 128-page adventure that takes you from first level to 4th, so be it. That's okay by me. It is an awesome introduction then. I want to do something awesome, not oh, can I cram it in 64 pages, right? Plaguestone takes you from first level to about 4th level, and that's 64 pages. And it was able to do that by just cramming in a lot of the combats. And for me, I like to give breath and pause between things and kind of have good pacing. Not that I'm saying Plaguestone doesn't have good pacing, but I think a requirement of its length means that it doesn't perhaps flow as cleanly or as deliberately as this adventure is. Because really, this adventure really is kind of, frankly, the way it's shaping out, and if I can manage to stick the landing, this will be the best adventure I've ever, I think. I am really, really kind of sold on. So I'm excited. Is it taking its time? Yeah. I mean, Plague Stone took me 4 months to write, and then got play tested, and it was my full-time deal for a while. So, all right, folks, that's all I have for everybody here tonight. I want to thank you all for stopping by. I want to thank you for your continued support. It really does mean a lot. I know that we've kind of stutter-stepped here into the beginning of the year, and frankly, the end of the previous year was a little challenging as well. I'm going to get this thing back on track. I really am. And, you know, I need to place an art order here very soon. I'll be sharing some of that with all of you as it comes together. There's been some controversy right now about art rates in the industry. I got to take a look at those and make sure that they still match up with my budget. I still think, you know, frankly, I'm a pretty small press, and I have a budget that I have, and that means if I have to go with less experienced artists that charge lower rates, you know, that's what I'm going to do. But I also, you know, I'm very committed to paying people fair rates, fair wages. So, you know, that's a challenge. So we're going to make it work. I have faith that we'll find a way through to the end. So, folks, thank you for watching again. Thank you for tuning in. I know I haven't done an Eventide Lord video in quite a bit, because there wasn't one in November, obviously, and I think we only had one in December. So I do want to get one of those soon. I'm not sure if it'll be this Saturday or not. I need to look at my schedule and timing thing. But I'll let folks know about that. All right. All right. Said goodbye like 4 times. I feel like I'm at a Midwestern party. All right. You're from the Midwest. Yes, I did. Fair. All right, folks. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you in just a bit over on Twitch. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your week. I'll be in touch. Stay in contact. Thank you for watching, everybody, and we will see you next time.